Anyways, Loki want to pick this route, so this is a mini mine from mini mine mode for me since I haven't played this game. So mini money mo cash up finger by the toe my mother toe he you are it. All right, okay, route. Gotta go this way. If only time could just stop. It was impossible to truly determine the single greatest moment of your life until you are looking back on things from your deathbed, of course. Uh, I was sure everyone had wished for something similar at least once. Huh? Alright, guys. I'll just edit that part out. Sure, everyone wishes for something similar at least once. It was only the human. It was only human to wish for the fun times to continue to to want to relive a moment of glory. It felt human to wish to hang onto something here and now. Even should its brilliance fade, that beat still beat losing it. The, the known was comforting, the unknown terrifying. Everyone must have experienced this sort of anxiety before, especially students like me. It was hardly usual to experience this sort of feeling. After all, we are at that part of our lives where we start thinking about college, getting a job, and just the future in general. Huh? I am reading. I have a video to make. Yes. especially students like me. It was hardly usual to experience this sort of feeling. Hardly unusual. After all, we were at that part of our lives where we had to start thinking about college, getting a job, and just the future in general. We were so uneasy. It was the easy transition between childhood and adulthood, so it felt only natural that we started obsessing with the mundane. One could call it living for the moment, a kind of escapism that arose when you didn't have both feet on the ground. For better or for worse, it was it was the sort of infection that didn't really do any harm. You just couldn't write it off as another facet of youth. But I didn't want to ever get over this particular strain of myself. Sorry guys for the misreading of that, total butchering. I'm just tired. After all, my life up to this point had been more than comfortable. It might have been boring, commonplace one, but I was fine with continuing that way forever. If time flew when you were having fun, the solution was to simply not have fun in the first place. It was best to steer away from the unknown and stick to the default path. Who knew that? Who knew what sort of trouble you might encounter on the road less traveled by? I was enamored. I was enamored enough of my current environment to actually entertain more than just entertain. In fact, ridiculous notions like that. To turn one's back on the unknown and seek only the unknown, you could describe it as playing a game while looking at a walkthrough. Now it's my Ren Fuji's way of life, always had been, and hopefully always would be. I figured I could keep my eternal sense of time set on slow if I kept up this line of thinking. Stopping time was completely impossible after all. So I could consider this philosophy to be kind of a compromise, the closest possible realistic approach. I thought that I understood. Nothing lasts forever. Ah, That's something being finite meant that its end could come at any time.
じゃあお前、例えば自分の人生を小説だと考えてみろ。
Up until that day. Up until the day where he had to go and say that.
漫画でもゲームでも何でもいいが、とにかく一人称語りで進む長編だ。自分をその主人公だと考えろ。
A story that continues from the cradle to the grave, an epic saga that details each and every event and person that comes into your life, from the minute, from the mental. Think of life as something like that, he said.
そこで質問。今自分が綴ってる小説は実際のとこ面白いのか？主人公としてお前はキャラが立ってるのか？
As far back as I could remember, Cheryl had a habit of suddenly going on and on about that didn't make sense like this. Most of the time, it was just to try to get a rise out of me.
文法が怪しいとか語彙が貧弱だとかそういうスキルのこと言ってんじゃない。ただドラマとして売りになりそうな花なりトゲなり毒なりを持っているか。さらに同じジャンルを囲った中でも抜きん出ている何かがあるか。自分がやらなくても他の誰かがやるような人生なら生き続ける意味はない。連れとだべってバカやって女作ったり部活やったり悪くはないけど珍しくもない。そんなの日本中の同年代がリアルタイムで経験してる。
Nice.
俺は別に数が多いことをバカにしてるわけじゃないぜ。選択肢があるように見せかけて実は人生一本道なのかもしれないってな。
In other words, What if we're not choosing, but instead being made to choose?
少なくともこの国じゃ最大公約数が強いだろ。出る杭は打たれる。天才は孤独。はぶられるバカ。いじめかっこ悪い。なんでもいいがよ。まあそれは現実的な解釈で理屈つけた場合の話で。俺はなんていうかな。デジャブるんだよ。これ、前にもやったんじゃねえのかなって。楽しくないんだ。新鮮味がない。前にも読んだことある気がするんだ。この話。だから。
But what?
フラグ立てとフラグ折りさ。
And what was that supposed
言っ
to?
てもわかんねえかもしれねえな。だってお前、好きだろそれ。何もかもが基地の範疇。1から10まで同じことを生まれて死ぬまで繰り返したい。そんな変人、他に知らんし。そもそも、俺の話に出てくるお前は、なんかずれてるトリックスターみたいなもんなんだよ。
I could have said the same thing about him myself. Shiro was the type of guy who was impossible to read, impossible to get a handle on. He certainly wasn't the type of character that who should have been appearing in my story. So why did it sometimes feel like he was a central figure in it? If we're going to be going with the whole novel analogy, Shiro was a misprint.
そんなお前をここでどかせば、話が変わってくるかもしれない。な顔すんなよ。お前だってわかるだろ。俺らはお互いガキの頃にいろんなもんから弾かれてる。本来なら気楽に学園ドラマやってられるような身分じゃないんだ。そしてだからこそ今までそれをやってきた。挫折もんだよ。泣きたくなる。だから根性なくて悪いけどよ。俺は人生は短い。エンディングが来る前に選択肢の総当たりをやらせてくれ。この一本道、絶対どこかに別ルートがあるはずだ。俺はそれを探したい。
If it's something new, then it's worth checking out either way.
だったらここでお前と切れるってのもなかなか面白いと思うだろ。
I had gotten sick of that grin on his face long ago. It was a sort of expression that seemed to say he had near a care in the world, fitting really. That's how I knew nothing I said would get through to him. Not like I knew what he was going on about in the first place, really. But one thing was for certain: Shiro's genre or whatever would diverge completely from my own.
死んだら化けて出てくれよ。俺まだ幽霊見たことない
Ain't a
し。
ghost yet, you know. So I was prepared for what came next. Fists normally can't go too far. After all, you're using your actual hands as feet as weapons. If they got you were done. It only made sense to call it a draw when you ran out of ammo, so to speak. But Shiro and I were a little too stupid to let that stop us. We couldn't even really call it a fight. We were just trying to obliterate each other, plain and simple. There was enough blood pouring down my face to make it seem like I was viewing the world through a red veil. We smacked each other around so much that our hands themselves broke. What? We even had bones poking out of our skin, but we just kept at it. My eardrum shattered long ago. I was lost in a world of noise and violence. My shoulder had dislocated. My shin split into two. My ribs were bent and broken, piercing various internal organs for good measure. Here I was hacking up blood like it was out of stop, like it was going out of stop. But Shiro seemed to be having the time of his life. I couldn't focus on anything the way he exploded at laughter. Why did it end up like this? Why did he need to take it this far?
言ってもわかんねえって。ただこの町に住んでいたら。
I couldn't remember what he said after that, no matter how hard I tried. All I knew was that we continued brutalizing each other until our bodies ceased to function. It wasn't a matter of one of us deciding to surrender or passing out or whatever. This kite literally ran out of batteries. We had both taken too much abuse to keep our bodies sheer willpower, keep our bodies going with sheer willpower alone. It was no laughing matter. Our battered bodies were just lying there on the rooftop, drowning in a pool of our own blood. We probably would have died if no one had found us. What did Shiro say?
楽しいな。
Seriously, how could he act like that was some sort of game? Listen to me.
こっちに来たけりゃいつでも言えよ。
Don't like you triumphed over me like you've gone to the next level or whatever. Me? Come at you? Give me a break. You're the one that needs to call out of the gutter and come at me, Ed. Left cheeks, upper jawline, lower jawbone, right eye, fundus, nasal bones, all varying degrees of fracture. Left collarbone completely fractured, upper left cup, middle left hand bones completely fractured, right shoulder dislocated, right ulna, metacarpus, and carpal bones completely fractured, ribs 3 and 4 of the right rib cage completely fractured, ribs 5 and 6 of the right rib cage complete compound fractures, ribs 4 and 6 of the left rib cage completely fractured, ribs 7 and 8 of the left rib cage compound fractures, right femur partially fractured, right tibia, left tibia, both metatarsus is completely fractured, not to mention all various sprains, bruises, cuts, lacerations in total. I had damage of 48 distinct locations. If you listed it out, it sounded like that. It sounded like I got in a fight with a dump truck or something. Surprised I even made it to the hospital in one piece. To be honest, though, I wasn't okay with dying. Most of that I handled. I guess I just kind of reached this zen state, like if I was going to die, so be it. Maybe it would be better to say I just stopped caring. That fight had been enough excitement for a one lifetime. I lost the will to do anything. Barely paying attention to the world around me. I stopped giving about myself either way. Under my unhealthy mental state, my body recovered quickly enough to shock even the doctors attending me. More than a little ironic. Honestly, there was a part of me that wanted to laze around in that hospital for a little longer. But I suppose there simply wasn't enough beds to keep someone fully recovered laying around forever. The hospital staff told me that I need to get out of there if I was well enough to be walking around. I really had no choice in the matter. I wasn't a fan of the idea of someone who actually needed care being turned away because of my selfishness. It was for the best that I complied with the staff's request. Regardless of my feelings, the world would keep on turning, they said. Time stopped for no man after all. No turning back. What was done was done. Right now, the most important thing was thinking about what would come next. It didn't matter whether or not I was capable of doing. I had to face the fact that it was a necessary period. The only way I would ever be able to move forward, one way or another. So I decided to walk out there with a smile on my face, one way or another. I headed back to my room to pick up my things after taking care of the checkout procedure. Of course, the only real personal effects I brought with me. After I spent 2 months in this hospital room. Oh crap! Of course, the real personal effects I had brought me were some changes of clothes and an MD player. I had spent 2 months in this hospital room, so I figured that cleaning it up would probably only take about 5 minutes. Ended up taking it 10, but hey, same difference. The extra 5 was only me having to clean up all the junk costume you brought in while visiting. There are various comics, novels, even adult magazines. I seriously don't know what she was thinking about these. Like, bruh, I had like at least part of my childhood. There's no way I was getting scattered all over the place. There were more than a dozen in total. Rather than dealing with all myself, I decided just to send them all back to her place.
じゃあ皆さんお大事に。いや、あいつは今頃学校ですよ。来るとうるさくなるんで一足先に。ってそうですか？
Another patients in the same room. Made sure to get in a few lighthearted jabs. I was never good at dealing with situations like this. Though anyone ever would call me sociable type, but things like assuming the other patients will often struck up conversation with me. It was just awkward to ignore them completely after all. My responses were always half-assed. But they didn't seem to mind. The hospital generally had a gloomy atmosphere about them, so it's only natural that someone like Chiro Kasumi would bring
なら
attention.
あいつの進路に看護師って選択も入れるように言っときますよ。
I took my bag and turned to leave. But at
シロ
that,
ですか？
Shiro, being just as messed up as I was, had been taken into that hospital 3 days after his surgery. I hadn't seen him since.
知らないですね。あいつがどこで何してようと俺には関係ありませんよ。
Yeah, exactly what Shiro. Yes, exactly. What Shiro was up to was none of my business. I needed to stop worrying about this bullshit.
じゃあ
Outside of that hospital room, putting it all behind me once and for all. It had been months since I last been outside this hospital. The vast blue sky spread out invitingly above me. And in 2 months I had been hospitalized, autumn turned to winter. I suddenly became curious as to whether it was not putting up. They were already putting up Christmas decorations downtown.
遠回りなわけでもないし。
I decided it might be fun to experience my own version of the whole Rip Van Winkle experience. Needed to change the pace from the dull scenery that I had been stuck staring at from the hospital window anyway. Maybe this will help me get back into the swing of things.
って思ってたんだけど。
Or so I thought. Oh shit. Unfortunately, even downtown there was nothing but the barest trace of Christmas spirit I would expect. Made me realize just how laid back Suhawa City really was. Suhawa was built back around World War II. Despite being in an isolated location, it was nevertheless fairly prosperous thanks to the efforts on the part of the big shots in charge of the place. The Suhawa lacked the tradition it made up in tourist attractions. There were any number of facilities that would draw crowds in, such as an amusement park, that was famous nationwide. You can call it the small town success story. Of course, I only moved there 2 years ago myself, so I wasn't really want to talk. But I was definitely a fan of the landscape and general atmosphere of the city. It seemed like a hectic place at a first glance, but things move slower in 2 hours than one might think. Once you get used to it, it's relaxing. It was as relaxing as a baby's cradle. Of course, most people would tell you the exact opposite. Suhara was a lively place with a busting atmosphere, but I did know a few other people who agree with my assessment, such as Himuro and Shiro. it wasn't like you could say that either line of thinking was right or wrong, though. I don't feel like trying to argue with people who disagree. Live and let live, I guess. Anyways, my first foray into the city was in 2 months, and I didn't end up charging my impression of it much. Changing, guess. Then I just came to the boring conclusion that it was the same city as ever. Right as I was about to head back, oh, a piercing wail akin to a shrieking banshee rang out behind me. So much for enjoying the quiet afternoon. It sounds like these why I question why I was even friends with this girl. Who considered it a good idea to start yelling at someone's name like that?
お前ちょっと声でかすぎ。
隊員おめでとう。ねえどう？元気かな？もう痛いとこない？何よその顔。どうかした？
Alright. I wish I picked the Kasumi route now. Whatever. I wanted nothing more than to tell her yes. I was in a great deal of pain just now. She had walloped me something good on the shoulder, but I settled for just giving her a dirty look. So Kasumi eyes. My childhood friend. Now I'm truly regretting not choosing that path. I had a kendo club at her school. As you can probably tell by since she was rather rambunctious. And after have come to the national level several times. It was giving me the same smile as usual. I suppose this sort of upbeat attitude was one of her strengths.
お前なんでここにいるわけ？
何よ、いちゃ悪いの？
悪いっていうか不自然だろ。
It was the middle of the day. Why wasn't she at school?
サボったのか？
Skipping.
まあね。
なんで？
なんででしょう。
Hell, if I knew, I'd throw up my hands.
私ね、一刻も早くレンちゃんに会いたかったの。会いたかったの。会いたかったの。
ああ、そうなの。
Well, that's rare my spirit animal. I was glad to see her stupidity was in full form again today.
大丈夫よ。
あんたよりは私、日数足りてるし。
She said violently slapped me back. Hurt like a bitch.
それはそれとして、あんた何一人で勝手に帰ってんのよ。迎えに行くって私言ったの、覚えてないわけ？
いや、そりゃ覚えてたけど。
I wasn't exactly expecting her to get school to come pick me up, and it would have been a pass. So I tried to explain to her my line of thinking, but she wasn't having any of it. Because
じゃああんた、後で電話とかする気だったの？
definitely not.
っていうかお前の番号って何番だっけ？
これだからまったくこの野郎はよ。何ですか？君は携帯使えないんすか？いつの時代の人ですか？着信履歴の見方すらわからんお人なのですか？
失礼だな。それくらいわかるぞ。
じゃあ貸せこのクソ。
Kasumi snatched my cell phone away and began to tap at it at lightning speed.
はい。電話帳のトップに入れといたからね。消したら怒るぞ。つうか閉めるぞ。
Triple, we're gonna not take no path.
ところでこれなんだ？愛のヴィーナスって。
あたし。
とりあえず狂気のベルセルクに変えとくけどな。
変えんな。っていうかそれ、頭痛が痛いと同じレベルの重複表現。
I'm sorry. I had to leave out twice.
それくらい強調したいんだよ。そもそもヴィーナス名乗るなら少しは女の子らしい言葉を使ってくれ。
誰が怒らせてると思ってんのよ、このバチ当たり。
Oh, triple we're getting that treaty to pass.
私の手とかがっしり握ってありがとうカスミ君は僕の天使だよとかそういう感謝の一つや二つってほらこっち見るあんたいきなり大怪我して入院して私心配して毎日お見舞い行ったのにどうのマジですかやる気あんのかつうかやんのかこら
やる気も何も
Virgil will have an issue with what you're saying. Okay, then take it back. Kasumi seriously needed a cool before she popped a vein. She was one acting unreasonable here. I think she would calm down a bit and actually did the whole my angel thing. If I'd have to do it, if I calm down a bit if I did the whole my angel thing. Well, I really didn't feel like going through with that.
そもそもあんたは
However, I did just have the thing to shut her
と
up.
りあえずお前が病室に持ち込んだ諸々は家の方に送っといたぞ
はい
捨てるわけにもいかないだろうだから家に送ったんだよ気が利くだろ
ちょい待ちそれ全部
Yeah.
そう全部
The comics, the books, and of course the magazines full of negative.
その待って家ってどっちの方よ
実家
Ah, man, that was cold. Absolutely cold.
冗談だよね
冗談は苦手だな
マジで
マジだ
It will be a sad day for Miss Isaiah when she receives that package and learn exactly what her daughter has been buying. She's gonna be questioning your morality for a bit, my guy.
あんた最悪買うの恥ずかしかったのに
じゃあ買うなよ
でもさ役に立った
What a bro. You gotta like get some new stuff.
そこそこ
本当にあんたそんなやつだったの
どんなやつだよ
Define that kind of guy.
ねえちょっと具体的にどの号の何ページが役に立ったの
All right. This is a test here. Of course, I'm going to say that cosplay style.
キモ
おい
いやいやごめん今のなし私は別にいいけどねレンがどんな趣味してたってとにかく怪我が治ってよかったじゃない特にこことか
She said poking my cheeks with her
中
thumb.
で大きい絆創膏してたから傷が残ってるのかと思ったよ
ああこれね
Sure, I have been wearing armor in these sort of fights, so my cheeks were cut up and back when I first entered. I didn't really care if it left scars or not. That needs. No,
What does that do?
that's an Xbox.
Why you don't got no PS5 and PS4?
My God, I'm gonna have to meet this whole section after you read it in post editing. I didn't really. Case in point.
せっかく綺麗な顔してるんだから傷が残ったらもったいないよね
Alright, I'm just gonna stop. Back when I was a kid, I used to get mistaken for a girl a lot of the time. All the time. Unpleasant memories, to say at least. Even as a teenager, it still happened from time to time, despite the fact that I was hardly short or anything. I was trying to recruit female models. That called out to me on the street more than one occasion. Definitely the kind of thing that had to be. Thing that dealt a blow to your pride as a man. So I decided to let Cosme have a piece of my
わ
mind.
ざわざ学校サボってそれだけ言いに来たのかお前は。
単位おめでとうって
ああ、他に用がないなら帰るぞ俺は。
なにその言い方可愛くないな遊びたいなら遊びたいって言えばいいのに
は？なんだそれ。
だからこのままデートとかしたくない
全然。
I'm regretting not picking the costume route even more.
あいやいいわよ私もそんなつもりなかったし上等だもん帰ったるもん痛くも
I wasn't sure I understood what was going through Kosumi's head at that moment, but it was probably for the best. Hold up.
でもね後でレアさんに何か言われたら全部あんたのせいにするからね
何？先輩がなんだって？
だから命令されたの
What the hell? What on earth was you thinking?
それでお前はうなずいたわけ？
そりゃあだって断ったら怖いじゃない
I want to describe Himuro as scary. I mean, she was a type that was a little hard to get a handle on, but still.
ね。
レは嫌なの
嫌ってわけじゃないけどな。
Just that I didn't know where we even go. Like, just going to amusement park with Kasumi just didn't feel like anything special.
俺大して金持ってないけど。
私もないわよ
I was about to tell her we should just forget about it, but Kasumi started to fish around in her bag. I'm having you Neko flashback.
でも大丈夫先輩その辺は
Sorry guys. She finally pulled something out.
チケット2枚準備万端でしょほらそいじゃ行くよ
けどお前芸術に興味なんかあったっけ？
The museum was located away from the main street we were on. Our way there, I asked Kasumi, on our way there, I asked Kasumi something that had been on my mind. It wasn't a huge museum or anything, but it was fancy. It was a fancy sort of place that frequently held expeditions for painting ceramic and the like. It didn't seem very
似合わ
Kasumi.
ないって
どうだか。ただ先輩ならハマるかもな。
なんかそれ私が非生産的なやつみたいで嫌なんですけど
お前何か生産できたか？
料理作れるよ
Was that really so special? Not that I was one to talk. Cooking and me went together as well as oil and water.
とりあえずお前の料理は置いといて、結局何がコンセプトの展示なんだよ。
見てわからない
Kasumi flashed the tickets at me, a wicked gleam in her eye. Frankly, the text on the ticket were printed so large that It would have been impossible not to notice, but
一応確認だけな。
I was still holding out hope that I was seeing things because if I wasn't then featuring assortment of objects I was not interested in seeing. Unfortunately,
世界の刀剣博物館。
my hopes were thoroughly crushed. There's just no way to treat someone who just got out of the hospital. Eventually, we reached the museum, though Kazumi basically had to fight me tooth and nail on the way there. I spared the details of her dragging me around the place after we got there. I prefer not to remember. And so,
ねえちょっといつまでそんな顔してるのよ。
Kasumi muttered. Kasumi, she doesn't seem like the type to murder. Kasumi muttered an exploration while looking at the least nice on the cookie. I couldn't help but have a sour look on my face. The mere sight of these kinds of blades had made me nauseous for as long as I could remember. Have a fear of the blades? Man. Why did she take me here in the first place? She knew full well I wasn't good with sharp objects.
情けないな。別に噛みついてきたりしないのに。なんでそんなに嫌がるわけ？
なんでつわれても。
Her tone was genuinely curious. Unfortunately, this wasn't something I had a
お
clear
前
answer.
毛虫嫌いなのに理由があるか？
毛虫かわいいじゃん。なんかけなげで。
じゃあゴキブリは？
見つけたら叩いて潰すね。
ならヘビとかは？
巻きつけると気持ちよくない？ひんやりしててさ。
What? Wonderful. I suppose I was wrong to expect a girlish response out of Kasumi in the first place. Absolutely wonderful.
なんか言った？
気にするな。
Whatever the case, these things just didn't sit well with me. Although Miss Kendo over here might have found the blades on display fascinating, but I was definitely not having a good time.
もう一通り回ったし、そろそろいいだろう。帰らない。
Okay.
それはあんたの態度次第ね。
She was telling me this?
俺の態度は昔からこんなだろ。病み上がりなんだし、高いハードル持ってくるな。
ほんとしょうがないな。
Kasumi heaved a deep sigh. I was beginning to think she actually understood, but
じゃあ最後にもう一回りして帰ろうか。
no, of course she didn't. And so we ended up taking one more lap around the museum. I did my best to avoid looking directly at any of the blades on display. I wasn't sure I could really explain why I had this thing against the blades. It wasn't because I was good, but it wasn't because I felt scared of them. Maybe they just weren't compatible. I didn't want anything to do with them. Period. It just felt like mixing up Ren Fuji and bladed weapons was a bad idea. Like putting ketchup on a donut. What the hell was ketchup on a donut? Keeping my distance? It was the smart move if I wanted to maintain the peace and harmony of my life. In a way, that was reminding me of Shira. I shook my head reminiscing about that guy. Was the opposite of a productive activity. I was on a date? After all, worrying about Kasumi would be a better usage of my time. I didn't have much confidence in managing that, but it would be the polite thing to do. Huh?
何？どうかした？
あ、いや、
I could have swore I heard something. Was it just my imagination? Mm. I was really hearing a voice coming from somewhere.
レン
I screened my ears. The museum was quiet enough, so we shouldn't have. Make out a voice. I'm assuming it wasn't my message. It was coming from this
ちょっと
direction.
待ってよ。どこ行くの？
I ignored Kazumi and ran off. I wasn't quite sure myself why I felt so compelled like this. There's no clear. Some voice. And some voice in the distance. Either way, I found myself drawn to where the voice was coming from. Perhaps it would have been more accurate to say I was guided there even. I found myself in an obscure corner of the museum. The sort of place you'll never come across if you were just taking a normal route through the exhibit. Normally you wouldn't even think there would be an exhibit piece somewhere out of the way like this, and yet there was.
ギロチン
I was sure everyone has heard of the guillotine, the execution device used for beheading. This exhibit wasn't an entire guillotine, though, just the blade used for beheading itself. The blade will form distinguish itself from the rest of the exhibits by demonstrating a cold simplicity. There was nothing glamorous or decorative about it. This was just a lump of steel designed for the sole purpose of beheading with ruthless efficiency. You would likely not find a suitable tool used for its task. Why was something like this even on display? It was a blade, yes, but it differed from anything else I had seen today on a fundamental level. It might have had some historical value, but it wasn't a weapon to implement. It wasn't a weapon or implemented some ritual. It is implemented some rituals, cutting people's head off in public. More than anything, though, I wanted to know why I had found myself drawn to it.
何これ？私全然気づかなかったよ。
Kasumi had finally caught up. She took a glance at the guillotine from over my shoulder.
レン、よくこんなの見つけたね。何？
ボワード・ジュスティス、正義の柱。ギロチンの正式名だよ。あとフランス語な。それからマクシミリアン・ロベスピエール、知ってるだろ。18世紀の政治家だけど。
恐怖政治の？
そう、そいつに使ったものだって書いてる。
But Robespierre was a key figure during the French Revolution, the man responsible for sending those who opposed the reign of terror to the guillotine. Ironically, this end will come by the same device he had employed on so many of his political opponents. This was supposed to be from back then.
なんかうさんくさいな。信憑性はなさそうだ。
でもそんな風に書かれているとなんか嫌な感じだね。
同感だ。
Audacity aside, the idea of putting something like that on display was simply in bad taste to begin with. How to put it? The whole thing felt far too raw. The object on display here was a tool of execution, nothing more, nothing less. So perhaps it was only natural that
どれくらい殺したのかな。
one would find themselves asking that question precisely because the lack of raiment present in the other exhibits made its nature as an implemented death
あま
apparent.
り不謹慎なこと考えるなよ。
これは興味津々に拝むようなものじゃない。
そうだけど、そもそも見つけたのはそっちじゃない。
誰だって嫌なものには敏感なんだよ。
Rivers of blood. Rivers of blood. Screams echoing into the distance. All sorts of vision of death ran through my head when looking at this thing. But often you find something that so clearly embodied the negative side of the original intent of the blade. When that rose tree was the name attached to it in the 18th century, if it really good excuse it. It was actually assumed that it executed hundreds of people. So I actually described the guillotine as a merciful form of execution. It was designed to sever heads at a right angle and velocity to ensure that the criminals met swift and painless death. Instant death delivered at lightning speed. There was a reason some called it merciful. It's easy to get the impressions from the rivers of blood of the mutilated corpses of the guillotine produced. Someone facing execution, it was probably far preferable to being hanged. Assuming the victim died before they had the chance to feel the pain in their hand being decapitated, that is. I find myself thinking about exactly this sort of thing. I told Kasumi not.
行こう。正直気分が悪くなってきた。
ああ、そうだね。ごめん、顔色悪いけど大丈夫？
平気だよ。別に体調が悪いわけじゃ。
Before I could hear the word ill out.
あなた、同じ。
Who? I heard a voice from earlier. Again, more clearly than ever.
彼と同じ。あなたも同じ。
Who is he? Why did I react the way I did? If only I hadn't paid attention. If only I had ignored it. If only I hadn't looked at it. If only I had to turn around to face that dreaded blade. I would have never heard cursing words born forth from the ethereal figure standing in front of the guillotine. How could she have known that? What did she mean? We're the same.
一緒、同じ。あなたもなる。
The girl standing before me had skin that appeared white. It was irrecoverably tarnished by that violent streak of crimson across her neck. I almost wanted to believe it was some sort of necklace, but no. The jagged pattern was unmistakably described that of a decapitation would create. Looking back on things later, I was able to say this is where it all had begun. Does my present live up to your expectations, Zarathustra? And thus we met, brought together by him. It was dark by the time I got home. I almost had passed out in the museum earlier. Managed to make it back okay. I still wasn't feeling too hot. At least the consolation that Kasumi wasn't the type of person to get upset about having to deal with stuff like this. However, on the other hand,
ねえ、レン、
I also meant that she was a type to fret endlessly. My current goal was to figure out some way to make her leave me alone. If I didn't, she was liable to try to spend the entire night watching over me or something.
辛いなら横になったら私おかゆとか作ろうか。
いいよ別に大丈夫。もう寝るからお前も帰れ。
I knew she was trying to help, but I still couldn't get things straight after what happened earlier. I probably came across as harsher than I
別
admitted.
に俺虚弱体質ってわけじゃないし、怪我はとっくに治ってるから病人扱いするなって。あんまり心配されてると本当に気分がめいってくる。
うんでも今日誘ったのは私だし、なんか責任感じちゃうし、レンちょっと頼りないし。
Quintuple regret that choosing your route.
お前さりげなく失礼だな。頼りがいのあるお前が俺に付き合って倒れたら困るだろ。だから
私そんなにやわじゃないよ。
俺もそんなにやわじゃないよ。だいたい俺を気遣ってるなら不毛なやりとりに付き合わせるなよ。ただでさえ明日から学校行くのが億劫なのに。
あ、そうだった。ダメだよレン、サボっちゃ。
今日サボったやつに言われてもな。
私はいいの。ちゃんと毎日通ってたから1日くらい平気だよ。でもレンは入院して多分日数足りてないんだからね。留年しちゃうよ、怠けてると。一緒に卒業したいもんね。ね。
そうだな。
よし、だったら早く寝る。
だからさっきからそう言ってるだろ。
うるさいな、この不健康児は。口答えするんじゃないの。じゃあおやすみ。明日起こしに来るからね。
それはいいけど、おいかすみ。ちゃんと玄関から出ていけよ。おい。
Do you think she could get away with anything just by laughing it off?
それはちょっとめんどいなとか。
普通はその面倒なことが常識なんだよ、大体。いい加減大家に怒られるぞ。いくら隣同士だからって。
You would be in deep, and the landlord found out what she had knocked a goddamn hole in that wall and turned it into some sort of corridor like this. This is the sort of thing people get kicked out for. And fine. Kasumi and I have moved into this apartment together when we enrolled in our current school. I took her less than a week to construct this little side entrance.
でも同じアパートの隣に住んで助け合うってのが一人暮らしの条件だったし、いいじゃない。この方が密にフォローできるんだから。
けどな、親もまさかここまでやってるとは思ってないだろ、絶対に。
そうかな。
そうだよ。
頭固いな。だいたい事の発端はシロなんだし、私に言われても困っちゃうよ。
Believe it or not, she wasn't lying. Katsumi, Shiro, and I all lived together in this apartment complex. All 3 rooms next to each other in a row. It happened one late night out of nowhere. Shiro broke down the wall separating our rooms. With a hammer in his hand, suddenly got the urge to play me in a fighting game. How stupid you get.
で、 何を土地狂ったかお前も真似したんだよな、ご丁寧に。
私はハンマーなんて野蛮なことはしてないけどね。
He was barbaric enough to go down a hardware store and accidentally buy a power saw, and some tarps, and a masket. Anyway, I had a bad fortune to live between these two idiots. I ended up with holes on both sides of my room. Privacy? What's that? Because when we show, I'll just cut through here to visit each other. My home was getting some sort of natural gathering place in general.
せめて四郎の穴だけでも塞がせろよ。
ダメよ。戻ってきたらどうするの？
There's no what if. Cheryl was never coming back, whether Kasumi knew it or not.
と、またみんな元通りになるんだから。私とレンと素人でね。レン？
だな。
じゃあおやすみ。
Alright, guys. After this line of dialogue, No. After this line of dialogue, I'm in the gate here. Sumi smiled sweetly and returned to her room, through the hole in the wall. I could tell by the complete lack of dust in my room that she had bothered to clean it while I was stuck in the hospital. I always show it too. I never admit it out loud. I did appreciate the consideration. At the same time, though, I'm not gonna help but wonder. But I really deserve having to look after me like this. Kasumi knew nothing. But alright, we should have been. You get me nowhere. I decided to stop mulling over the past, and what was done was done. It wasn't healthy to try to keep obsessing over things like. It wasn't healthy to keep obsessing over things like this. There was no way the girl I saw in the museum could have actually been real. She was just an hallucination, born from my unstable mental state.
そうさ。
I lay down in bed, a good night's sleep over it. I should wash the memory away from today. I would have remembered everything when I woke up next morning. I was sure of it. I stared up at my own ceiling for the first time in months. Made a familiar surroundings, I drifted off into sleep, and slight unease rather than a sense of comfort. Alright, ending on a cliffhanger, guys. Bye. Said I was gonna end that like 3 times.